Hello, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about the second game in my 20 game challenge that I'm participating in. If you haven't seen my video where I explain the rules, the TLDR is I'm basically recreating multiple games, increasing in difficulty, in hopes of a more structured way of learning game development. Since this is game 2, we're going to be doing a slightly simpler game, but more of a step up from the previous one we did. I'll link the previous video in the description so that you can go back and check it out and see a more in-depth look at the rules. But in this video, we're going to focus solely on the game I made now. For the second game that we'll be making here in this challenge is a Jetpack Joyride clone. So now Jetpack Joyride was a very popular mobile game back in 2011. It only has a single control for your player. You just press one button. You can move up and down based on how long you hold the button. And you're basically trying to dodge obstacles coming from the right of your screen. For the engine I'm going to be using, it's going to be Godot, of course. For the art, normally I would do the art myself, but this time I'm actually having my beautiful wife take over the art section of this so that I can focus more on the programming, and it also gives her an opportunity to practice some of her art skills that she's been really wanting to flex and expand upon. I also want to try to do a project with her very soon, so I think this is a good springboard for working together and trying to coordinate that type of environment. So the first thing I worked on, and the first thing I like to work on in general, was the player. So here is our little chicken guy that's going to be running around. We did not name her, so if you have a great name suggestion, please leave it in the comments below. So there's not much going on here overall. We do have two sprites set up here to show off the jump animation, and then another here to show off the run. And that's kind of the big overarching parts of it. The idea for the jumping mechanic in Jetpack Joyride, you'll shoot a gun and you will launch yourself up by shooting the gun. In this case, the chicken just lays a bunch of eggs. So we have it set up so that the eggs will spawn on the jumps, and then you'll just move up based off your input. There's really nothing super crazy. We did add some particle effects and some extra stuff for when you die, which you'll all see in the more final product here. Moving along now to the obstacles you're gonna be dodging, we decided barbed wire was just a really easy and simple thing we could try to dodge. So we did end up drawing out 3 different barbed wire types here. It's kind of a standard, a more long one, and then a circle. You'll notice that I did add a shader around them because initially they were just black. And then I realized it's kind of hard to see on some of the backgrounds, so I applied the shader as an easy way to make it so we don't have to go back and detail and outline each one with white just to make it easier to see. This was just a quick fix, so I was really happy with that solution. There's not really anything crazy with these either. They do just kill the player as soon as they come in. If you look at the main scene, I do the same thing as I did in the previous video with Flappy Bird, where I just recycle the same 10 or 12 barbed wire, and they go in through this point here, will move across the screen, and they'll basically get put into an array, and when the array will just constantly cycle through and then add the front to the back, delete the front, and then just keep moving through the array. And that way we don't have to have like an extra area 2D that's trying to catch these. It's just super simple to do it that way. So this will cycle through infinitely. I guess the only thing I didn't like is it's technically not random, the order. So the order will be set in stone as soon as these are put into the array. And in theory, you could figure out what the pattern is, but I do increase the speed, and the angles and everything is completely different every time it resets the position. So I don't think it's that awful. And I have a handful of these. I mean, trying to memorize, the position and order of 12 different barbed wires is, I feel like, unreasonable. So overall, I think it's fine. If you have a better way that I should have done that, usually let me know in the comments below. I'm trying to really learn, so any feedback at all would be really helpful. So before we talk about the main game loop and all the main parts of the game, I do want to take a step back and talk about some menus and UI that I've tried to amp up in this game. In this game, I really wanted to have a good feel with the UI and just have a little bit more of that juice and polish with this one, even though it is a training project. But I think taking a step back and focusing on that, even though it is not a part of the goals, was a really helpful thing for me, and it makes me feel a little bit more accomplished and like I learned a lot more new things. So here I wanted to show off specifically the options menu. Standard options menu here, I did add a custom buttons scene where you have a little bit of a tween here that increases the size when you hover over it and plays a sound when you click on and when you click the actual button. Very, very basic stuff, but for a beginner like me, just that little extra juice of the button expanding and getting big and making a noise when you enter it, you know, you can sit here and you can just do this and you just have a really nice feel to it. It feels like a polished game. Actually, I know it's so simple, but I was really amazed with this portion of it. So yeah, I really wanted to show this off, even though it's super simple. But yeah, I feel like I'm really learning because of things like this. So let's actually talk about the main game loop. So I knew I wanted to use a parallax background as a way to simulate the movement. I think that's pretty obvious with this. But I also wanted to have multiple scenes that rolled through basically randomly. So what I had Caitlin draw were multiple scenes that I could go through and basically throw them in an array and randomly select and then have it move through the screen. The problem I ran into was trying to figure out exactly what the parallax background was doing when it moves your scene across the screen. And what I figured out was this parallax background node here will go into your parallax layer and it'll tell whatever is in your parallax layer that it needs to move that thing across the screen. So it can be, I think, anything. So I have an area 2D here so I can catch when we want things to reset. I have a background node here for just the regular planes background. I have one also for the coupe, and then I have a bunch of these here that are just the different sprites for the different scenes. So after all my research and understanding that the children's position is what is changing, I was able to leverage that in a way that is modular to basically always have a seamless transition whenever a new scene comes in. So the problem is you don't want to, say, have the barn get selected and then have the clouds and everything in the background offset a little bit because it's not perfectly getting in the position that you'd like. So the way I did it was the only actual parallaxing layer that is infinite is this plane one here, which is just this background. So as it goes through, the plane one is the only one that resets in a loop forever. What I have in this function here is it will select a new background that is going to be shown and picked at random, and it's also checking here to make sure that it's never the same background as previous. And then what we do is I go into the children and I basically take wherever the plane's position is and then add on whatever the mirroring is for the actual parallaxing background to make it infinite. Doing this, it essentially throws the new scene farther down the line in the exact position I need for everything to line up, and then it'll move through. So the way that I build the array that these scenes will be going into and be randomly selected from is I created this custom class here that's called hideable background. And essentially on ready, we will build an array based on all the children that are hideable backgrounds. And from there, we're just going to pick them at random and basically offset them as they get chosen. I did have issues with my original window size was going to be 1920 by 1080. And I realized I had a lot of issues exporting that to itch.io and making it look nice. So I changed it to 1280 by 720. Which ended up I had to basically resize all of the backgrounds and everything to make that work. And I was really worried I'd have to refactor all this, but it actually turned out that the only thing I had to change was this offset number for making everything line up. And I knew what that number was is because it was what I was setting the mirroring for this plane one to. So with that, I mean, I had some very modular code and it worked through, you know, a refactoring process. So I was, you know, very happy, very proud of this. So without further ado, let's actually show off the main game. Something I really wanted to do too, to like expand my skills, is make the main menu fly in like this, have stuff pop off, and then I also wanted to add this little cutscene in the beginning of the chicken breaking out of the coop, and now we're off and running. You'll notice that we do keep track of your distance and we do keep track of your longest distance. We have random rotation for the barbed wire so that they do have different angles. It can be more threatening. They have random positions up and down. Every time the chicken jumps, she lays an egg, plays her animation. If you notice too, when the eggs hit the ground, they break and fall apart, which is a really just a cute, just really cute. Hitboxes aren't perfect, as I just ran underneath that one. You can also see why it was important to have the shader so you can see past like certain backgrounds, like the barn there. And then we also have the death animation, which I'll show you again. I was really happy with the particle effects here with the feathers. I think that actually adds a lot. And you have the particle effect of killing the chicken and why the chicken cross the road to get to the other side. So just, yeah, really, I think clean overall. It looks nice, I think. So that's something I really went for, was I want this to look nice. And I think I accomplished it. I think it does genuinely look appealing to the eyes. So this game now is live on my itch.io page. So if you'd like to play it and give me feedback on it, that link will be in the description below. Overall, I felt really good about this project. I definitely didn't feel as challenged. I think the Flappy Bird clone, I didn't feel challenged at all with. This one I felt slightly challenged because of the parallax background and the extra things I was trying to do with it. The main menu stuff and the menu stuff in general was all really nice. The cutscene was fun to do, but overall I didn't feel like 100% challenged on this. So I think the next game is actually Space Invaders, and since my first project ever was a Space Invaders clone, I think I might skip the third game and go directly to the fourth. So let me know if you think that's a good idea in the description or in the comments. Sorry, I'm leaving that in, by the way. I'm leaving that crap in. But yeah, let me know if you think that's a good idea. I think it is. I think I need to get something more challenging. I also want to try and do a game jam here soon, so keep an eye out for that. Overall, if you have any advice, anything you want me to look at, or anything I should know about for game dev, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what it is. And yes, thank you all for supporting me. Thank you for subbing to this new channel. I'm really excited to grow and really have a focused approach on game dev solely on this channel. And yes, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate every one of you, and we'll see you in the next one, okay? Bye.